Get my 6. Get mine too. Get mine 3. That was like doing a prolonged squat. Isometrics. It's pretty hard, but I'm in training, so it's a good thing. Whew. Also, after I finish these delicious adobo manit, my beautiful bride dearly, aka Giggly Girl's delicious Filipino, authentic Filipino style peanuts with twice as much garlic chunks this time as usual. Are you jealous? No need to be, because you can get them from our Etsy store now that we're back from our cross-country trip. FYI, all of those of you who already have this week, shipping them out tomorrow. Hang in there, they're on the way. So I was walking a loop around the property yesterday evening, looking for him, her, it, or they, and potentially this mysterious bandit running around in bed sheets, emptying their oversized bladders in the wrong places. And it occurred to me, it's been about a month since I've sat here in these spooky woods and told a spooky tale. Speaking of spooky tales, I've been editing all day, October Nights, Part 2, 31 more tales for the Halloween season. Still on schedule to be out in time for this year's Halloween. Actually, FYI, a behind-the-scenes note, I'd planned on releasing that last year, but I wanted to make sure to do it right, and so I held off for the other year, or for another year, to make the stories that much better. Boy, I went through one today to clean it up. October 7, a story called Winthrop that was so creepy. I literally got chills at the end because it's been almost a year since I'd touched that one, and I forgot how terrifying it was. At the end, I was upstairs alone. I had to go downstairs in the middle of a bright sunny day and be with my wife and kid because it was that creepy, and I wrote it. You just wait. So today's story is not a creepy story. Today's story, I'm going to talk briefly about... Briefly. Do I have the ability to talk about anything briefly? Obviously not. But again, when we're on our cross-country trip, I mentioned to you going to the Muhammad Ali Center there in Louisville, Kentucky, and becoming inspired to do something great, trying to do something that could really help people, change some people's lives for the better. And I chose the path of helping people who are really doing as much as they can to help themselves, but still just can't seem to get ahead. The working poor, also known as the forgotten class. Nobody cares about them because you just can't get political votes for these folks because they're white people, they're black people, they're Asians, they're Latinos, they're straight, they're gay, they're identifies males, females, transgender. We're across the board. And no one cares. We have no clout. We can't throw money. Now, I say me because this is my roots. This is where I come from. I grew up of modest means in Appalachia. I've worked my way out, and I've worked my way into the middle class, the upper middle class. And I know it's possible. I've done it, and I want to help people who just aren't quite there get there. So I've been doing all this research. Talked about social media. There's so many avenues on social media. There's somebody that's close to me that here very, very soon I'm going to be talking about in one of these talks about getting ahead. Somebody who has worked very hard her entire life, but wasn't quite where she wanted to be, but has finally started taking actions to get there and has done it by harnessing advancements in internet and social media that simply didn't exist 20 years ago. There's never been an easier time in human history to get ahead than now because of such things as social media. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Before we even come out and say, look, do this, go this route, make videos for YouTube or do TikTok, or there's something I'm planning on checking into here. It's called, it's something Amazon is doing where you can pretty much just be a creator of audio books. You don't have to write the books. You just read the books and record it and upload it, and Amazon will pay you to do this. It's called audio something. I've been seeing the ads for it. I haven't checked into it yet, so I don't want to give my opinion on that part yet until I've done my due diligence. But I mean, example, Etsy's another one. I mean, if you know how to make something that's actually good, you can offer your wares on Etsy, and there's another avenue for another income stream. But before we even get to that point, there's a mentality. There are several mentalities that need to be overcome. I talked briefly in a video there in the Smoky Mountains in Tennessee about the concept of excuse making. And this is something I've talked about since I've started this channel, because I've never been one to make excuses. I've always believed that you can, if there's something you want to do, you'll make it happen. You'll figure out a way to make it happen. Otherwise, you'll make an excuse. Well, when you make an excuse, it means you really don't want to do it. You have no desire to do it. And so therefore you make an excuse instead of making a way. Now, there are a lot of people who are dumb enough to believe excuse makers. They listen to the lies these folks tell themselves and they believe it as well. And they say, yeah, well, gosh, I can see why you're not doing more than you are. Yeah, that would be difficult to overcome. Or, yeah, I see the obstacles in your way. Gosh, I can understand why you're not successful. Most people aren't fooled by your excuses, but some are. There are people who will actually help you with your excuses. They'll live your excuse with you so that you can remain below where you could be. And unfortunately, a lot of times you'll bring those excuse makers down with you. What I'm talking about here is an individual or a group of individuals who have historically been called enablers. I've recently come across a term that we can easily use to replace the term enabler and pretty much come out with the same outcome. That term is sucker. If you legitimately believe the excuses you're being given by, say, your partner, by an adult child, by co-workers, you're a sucker. Let me explain what I'm talking about. Bit of background here. There are a couple of people who comment on the channel who say the reasons they love my channel, my long-winded, boring content, according to some, is because I'm two things. Real. I almost took this finger down first. I didn't want to do that. And number two, I possess at least a certain degree of common sense. And both just aren't so common anymore in our society. And I agree with that. I don't care what anybody thinks of me. At the end of the day, I answer to myself, my wife, and our son. I come from an environment where it was very pertinent what other people thought, what other people in the community thought. And life was not lived the way life wanted to be lived or should have been lived or could have been lived because, oh my God, what might people think if this happened or we did this or you did that or you would bring shame or humiliation to the family. That's not living. That's existing, and that sucks. A lot of people, get it all the time. Comments, OMG, I can't believe your wife's still with you. You're such an idiot. OMG, you literally are insane. You need mental health help. OMG, are you not embarrassed for your son because of the videos you... Blah, blah, blah. No, my wife and son love me unconditionally. What I do not only gets our bills paid, but allows us to live a life that is a dream life beyond measure. We couldn't have fantasized life would be this good. We don't care. I come on here and act a fool at times. Hey, the IRS loves me, I'll tell you that. So I'm going to talk to you about these suckers. You may be one, you may know one. And I'm going to do so by being real and talking about some stuff most folks would never go on to a place like social media and talk to potentially millions of people, millions of strangers they'll never meet about. But I'm going to anyway, because that's part of the real part that brings a lot of you here. And it's in order to address a very common sense part that a lot of people refuse to see because society has steered us away from common sense in this particular area. So we're talking about being the working poor, or maybe the lower portion of the middle class. Maybe you are educated, maybe you do have a really good job, a profession even, but you're still not quite where you want to be not because you're making excuses, but probably because there's somebody in your life who is making excuses, who's holding you back because they're playing the role of dead weight. Dead weight. And you continue to buy their excuses. You continue to believe the lies they're telling you that I can guarantee you they don't believe themselves. And I'm going to verify this with bona fide proof and evidence and state my source. They're lying to you and they know it, but you don't. Therefore, you're not enabling them to be deadbeats, to be that albatross around your neck that's holding you down. You're being a sucker. Now, I'm going to talk about two different ways in which you're being suckered. You are probably, if you're part of this group, you are potentially, one of my favorite words, being suckered by a partner, either a wife or a husband or a live-in lover, male or female, maybe the same gender, or you're being suckered by an adult child who just doesn't seem to quite yet get it. Well, actually, they probably get it a lot more than you can suspect. You're just being a sucker. Let's talk first about spouses, partners, live-in boyfriend, girlfriend, lover, who maybe indulge a bit too much in substances, whether it's alcohol, whether it's a drug, particular drug of choice. Listen, anybody has the propensity at times to become what's called a problem drinker or a problem user if the substance is a drug. Not everybody who ends up becoming a problem drinker or a problem substance abuser is an actual bona fide alcoholic or drug addict. Now, there's this huge, massive movement in American society and most of Western society that tells you if you have more than 4 drinks a week, you're probably an alcoholic. Well, common sense says you're probably bored and need a hobby. Now, there are alcoholics. I used to think I was one. Today, I know I'm not. Science has evolved drastically in the realm of addiction and substance abuse. And yes, I see that too. My goodness, I see 2 of them. Keep your eyes on them. Yeah, that was very weird, that play on light. And you notice how those birds just got way quieter, those brown thrashers? I don't think we're alone here. Oh, I know, here you go. Who's the crazy one now, Crazy Lake? You need mental help. But shut up, man. Listen to this story, okay? Listen, there have been times in my life when I have drank too much for too long. Now, once upon a time, I may have felt I might have been an alcoholic, and I've gone to those 12-step groups and all these things. And let me tell you, I have no qualm with those groups. And I know that there are people in there whom those groups have helped, and that's a wonderful thing. Whatever it takes, there's more than one road to recovery. There's more than one path to sobriety or moderation or just getting things in check to where you can live the life you want to live, whether that means total abstinence, moderation, a mixture, but certainly getting that binge, excessive periods of extreme drunkenness out of the way, because that's no good for anybody. So I have a group of friends. I have wonderful friends. I don't have a lot of friends, but the friends I have are very close. I've mentioned this before. Any one of them, if I called at 3 o'clock in the morning, had we broken down in Kansas on our trip and couldn't get help and needed help, these guys and girls would have raced across country to be there for us to help us. They're well-rounded individuals. Most of them are veterans, but not all of them, combat veterans. They are well-rounded individuals who have a lot of life experiences. Nothing bores me more than one-dimensional individuals, especially when that one dimension is simply being a repeat talking head of what they see on mainstream media. You know, the folks that really haven't been anywhere and haven't done anything but watch CNN and read journal articles and therefore think they're wise. You're not. Listen, you can gain knowledge by reading books, reading journals, watching PBS or whatever, the Discovery Channel. Wisdom in Webster's dictionary is resigned as a result of experience. You can be highly knowledgeable but really possess little wisdom because you've never done anything in life to obtain such wisdom. My friends are wise. We sit around the campfire. At times we drink cold ones, at times we don't. We usually do eat meat. We're always trying to solve the world's problems, and I think I'm starting to get rained on. But often we talk about this concept of addiction, this concept of maybe at times drinking too much and having to stop for a few weeks or a few months. Maybe sometimes just because I forgot to start again, I've stopped for years. The disease model theory that says, you know, you're born with this condition, there's no way you can get it out of you, there are all these things wrong with you, and you've got to fix all these character defects or you're destined to drink or drug again. That's never set well with me. It took me 40 years to get to the point to where I refuse to allow toxic people into my life. And now that I'm nearing 50, I'm finally getting to the point where I am accepting me for who I am and understanding that I am imperfectly perfect the way I am. And if at times I need to back off of certain activities, so be it. It's not because I am born with an inherent corruption inside me that if I don't change everything about myself, I'm destined to jails, institutions, or the grave. And I've got to go hook up with some dude that has no life experiences even comparable to mine, who's going to tell me how to live my life, that I need to call on a daily basis and say, hey, I think I need to go, I know I need to go to the grocery store and buy a gallon of milk and a loaf of bread. Do I have your permission to do it? Which aisle should I avoid so I don't drink again? Because listen, let me tell you, there's something I understand as somebody who at times has been a problem drinker, and that is this. I drink for one reason when I drink. It's because I like the feelings, the effect alcohol gives me, the effects of intoxication, because it feels good. Period. It's not because I was born with some sort of genetic default or I have all these character defects that I must correct, therefore I am humanly incapable of avoiding that first drink. It's not. You know how to avoid that first drink? Don't take it. Just don't drink. It really is that simple. Now, you can't say that in these 12-step disease model type places because you will be the Antichrist. So those places aren't really for me. And after going there a few times, I met some wonderful people. I would like to say some of them remain my friends, but that's not the truth, because once you stop going there, you're exiled and alienated because they're afraid that, oh my gosh, his stuff might rub off, and whatever. That works for a lot of people. God bless them. What didn't work so much for me was, again, this concept that there's just all these terrible things wrong with me, because I was raised to believe that. I was told that by my care providers, and it took me over 40 years to realize, no, my care provider had borderline personality disorder and never got help. The other one was the sucker, who most people would call the enabler, who worked as a gatekeeper to make sure the other one's ludicrous sense of reality wasn't dispelled, because then that one would have hell to pay when everyone else left, because that's where hell's fury would be given. I highly recommend this book called Rational Recovery by a guy that a lot of people in the disease model philosophy hate, Jack Trempe, because he basically, somebody before we took our trip, one of my buddies who we've had these in-depth conversations before, we've talked about how, realize we're going a little too far out there. Maybe it's time to stop for a while. And we've talked about how easy it really is to do. Suggested this book, and he actually gave me his copy of his book to read on the trip. I finally finished it, and this made more sense to me than anything I've ever read in regard to addiction. If you question your ability, but listen, here's the thing, we know the truth. And if you use in excess or if you drink in excess, you and I both know the truth. You do it because you like how it feels. Now, you're like, hey, I thought this was a video about helping those of us who are in the working poor or very bottom middle class. What's this have to do with us? We want to know how to make money. We want to know how to better our situations. Keep watching. We don't want to hear about drinking and drugging and all these things. Listen, how many of you are being held back because you're pulling dead weight from somebody who really doesn't need to read this because they already know the truth is, if they're not working, if they're in your household and they're not contributing to the financial situation of your household, if they're not helping around the house with the laundry, the cooking, the cleaning, taking care of the property, maintaining the vehicles, if they're contributing zero and it's because they indulge too much, and you actually are believing that it's because they can't control it, it's a disease that just they are powerless against taking that first drink at noon if they even wait till that long. He wrote an entire chapter in this book and worded it in such a way I've never heard that I instantly saw as the truth, and that is not that you're an enabler, it's that you're a sucker. Why would that person stop if you're providing a roof, shelter, you're doing the work to feed them, you're doing everything. Even when you come home and the house is filthy and they're sitting there already into their second six-pack for the day talking about woe is me, this is why I can't be successful because of this, that, or the other. You're a sucker. You're just a sucker. Now, I'm just going to leave it at that, and I'm going to jump to the next part of this conversation because this is about escaping being part of the working poor, the lower portion of the working class, the lower middle class who just can't seem to get ahead. And we're going to jump to this concept of the adult child who is still at home. And again, this may come across as judgmental. It's not. We get one chance at life, and if you want to live it to the fullest, you need to start now because there are no do-overs. This is not a video game. It's not baseball where there's 3 strikes, you're out. It's one and done. This is life. I was served an article in the media just yesterday about where Generation Zers were coming out to tell boomers. I guess there's this ongoing argument between baby boomers and Gen Zers, which I don't understand because that would be grandparents and grandchildren. Like most Gen Zers' parents are Gen Xers, my generation. But these Gen Zers wanted to let boomers, for some reason, know why they're still at home. A full 50% of U.S. adults under 30 still live at home. A very high percentage of them aren't working, and 25%, a full 1/4 of them aren't even looking for work. So their excuses that their Gen X parents are obviously suckering into buying are these. It was like, when you were our age, housing costs weren't so high. The economy wasn't so terrible. It was easier for you to go out there and find jobs that paid living wages than it is for us. You just don't know how much times have changed. Well, let me tell you how much times have changed. You're talking to the boomers, right? These are my parents' generation. When the baby boomers came of age, when they were 18, they had 2 choices. They could go to college or they could go to the Vietnam War because that's what was going on in our world at the time. And there was a deferment if you were a college student, and all you had to do was go. Professors were giving out C's to people who were just maybe not even showing up to class. It was called the gentleman's C. Because as long as you continued to just pass, you weren't eligible for the draft. Didn't go to college, you stayed at home with mom and dad because, the real world's just so hard. You ended up in Vietnam. Let's go back a generation before that. Very similar, but if you didn't go to college, you ended up going to World War II. You see where I'm going with this, right? Now, my generation, there was no major conflict at the time. So when we turned 18, we had 3 options. You either went to college or you got a job. You could stay home, but that was a humiliating thing. People were actually embarrassed by that. So typically you would go to the military because we were at peace at that time, and your likelihood of ending up deployed was slim to none. Could have happened at any time. So anyway, I'm going to keep talking through the rain. I don't care if I get wet. I like to swim. So this busts. I'm going to bust that excuse for Gen Z right now. And I'm doing it. You're watching me on YouTube, on social media, something that didn't exist a quarter of a century ago. I'm almost 50, and I'm not even that good looking. I mean, I'm all right. Well, okay, come on. I can't. This has got to be. They say, okay, I'm a good looking guy. But I'm not typical. Most people my age are not social media influencers. I understand the industry. It is an industry. It's not luck. I've had people tell, oh, you got luck. No, I didn't get lucky. It's an industry. I understand. I've done my due diligence. I made my sacrifices. I went without for many years because I knew what the prize at the end of the day, if I achieved the goal, would be. And it would be basically being my own boss, working 20 to 30 minutes a day. I mean, watch the length of this video. Being able to come and go as I please, and go to all my kids' school functions because I'm not tied down at an office or on an assembly line. Take my family on a cross-country trip because we don't have to go to jobs and clock in, and we have the money to do it because social media provides that for us. Social media didn't exist. If you're in your 20s and not ugly, you could join almost any social media platform out there and make tens of thousands of dollars a month and not have to worry about some crap job where they don't pay you a living wage, where your boss is a jerk. And I believe you know that. You're just very glad that your Gen X parents don't. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to continue to be your sucker. So listen, if you're being held back by dead weight, either an addict or somebody who drinks too much, who can just stop. Listen, they're not going to read this book because they already know the truth. And he states the science in the book. We have two brains. There's this thing called the midbrain, which is what Neanderthals lived upon. It basically deals with pleasure and need. We need food. So when we're hungry, our midbrain tells us to eat. When we... that's rain. That's not a ghost. At least I think. Well, that might be. When we desire sexual pleasure, our midbrain says, hey, go do that. When we're thirsty, it tells us to drink. When we need oxygen, it tells us to breathe. And when we want to feel good, it tells us to take that drink of alcohol or take that drug. We also have the advanced brain. This is what separates us from Neanderthals. This is what we've had developed for 35,000 years, modern man. This is where rationale, reasoning, and logic comes from. This is when the midbrain says, hey, beer would be nice right now. This is when the neocortex, that's its name, jumps in and says, yeah, I would, but we're not going to do that. Why not? You know, it feels good. Yeah, but, well, we have to go to work today. We have to earn an income because we have to support our spouse. We have to support our roommates. We have to support ourselves. We don't want to be dependent. We don't want to be dead weight. Oh, but you know, shut up. Go to work. See these hands? Watch. And he says this in the book. I'm going to use my neocortex to make my fingers move. Look at that, right? I have to think. I have to make my hand do that. Now, midbrain, tell my fingers to move. They're not moving. So no more than my midbrain can make my fingers move without my neocortex doing it. My midbrain cannot make this hand grab my keys, grab my wallet, drive my truck to the store, buy a 12-pack, come home, open a can of beer and drink it unless the neocortex gives it permission. Anybody who thinks that is possible, you're not an enabler, you're a sucker. And same goes for all those adult children living at home, refusing to work, because why would they? They don't got no rent. You're providing them a place to live. They don't even have to buy groceries. You buy the food. They don't have utilities. You pay the bills. And they just hope you never figure it out. Sucker. See you for more next time.